I've been sitting here contemplating something that I just heard in a video. It's been in my mind, the topic, that I need to speak about it because since it's happening to me, I have, a few bits of information that I can share with all of you, when it comes to what a child really wants to do when they first get here. Because I was one, I know that I already knew what I wanted to do. It took everybody else to talk me out of it. Like I mentioned before, this is why I believe that we're all angels with amnesia. Because we all have a purpose. We all came here onto this planet, landed here onto this planet with talents and skills that have been put down by the village, by the people around us, as useless, even though we're so good at it. That if we have such a good skill or such a good talent, could that be our contribution to the world? Because when you think about how many people are out there contributing to what the community experiences, how many people get to affect how you feel, and a lot of them use that gift to terrorize you, to make you feel like crap, to make you feel like there's no hope. And they say they're being positive or they're being, inspiring. You used to listen to, but it was this show that would come on, and I forgot why I started listening to that. Oh yeah, it was because I was always looking for motivational material, right? And it was in Spanish, and I thought, oh, wonderful, let's check it out. All these stories, it was just making you feel like crap. A parent who did not accepted his son before, and then the son was affected by it, but then the father died without telling the kid. So now he's a spirit trying to tell the kid, that he was wrong, and with this sad music in the background, and it's supposed to be inspiring. I'm like, oh my God. And I realized something, that these people thought it was inspiring because they were crying about it, because they were feeling something. So a lot of people don't even know that what they're feeling, it could be really bad because it's sad, but the fact that they're feeling something, they think that that's a good thing. And it is a good thing, but once you realize that you are feeling, maybe you start being a little more picky and choosy about what topics you get into, because you're listening to this radio show, this videos that would come on my feed, and because I clicked on it once because it said inspiring, I kept getting them, and it just got you down. But it was because it was to make people feel something. People would be crying and calling the show. I was like, this is the most inspiring show ever. It's like, what? You're bawling. It's just everything is so twisted and wrong. And that's the thing, because since we all get confused, or we're pretty much manipulated into dropping whatever inner call we're hearing and we want to tend to, it's just this nightmare that we just end up living. I know I said it in the past before, but it deems repeating. We're living nightmares because that's what we've been instructed to expect. And in everything, the people that talk about being close to God, that they're talking to God, and they come back with the most hateful and most destructive rhetoric that you could ever imagine, saying that, yeah, God told them that. If God is love, what would God have anything to say it? Or like, why would God say such hateful, horrible rhetoric, stories? It makes absolutely no sense. I'm talking about this also about this video that I happened to hear in the background about this soccer player who was putting down people in the LGBTQ community, and saying that Jesus touched her shoulder and told her that she was doing good, even though she's pretty much saying that being gay or from the LGBTQ community is wrong. So, how do you know? I love it when people throw their 2 cents, basically they get on the bandwagon, basically on the haters bandwagon. It's just absolutely ridiculous that most people embrace negativity, especially when it comes to God. Oh, you can't do that. I mean, to make God someone hateful, to make God someone. God is a force. God has absolutely no business, nor does it want to deal with this little petty stuff. And people will literally get behind a mic and tell this to the world, that some people are bad because they have to be themselves. Oh, because it's just something they invented, something that just came out. First of all, I have brought this up in the past, but I'm going to bring it up again. Hermes Trismegistus, meaning someone who was thrice great, wise, handed this information to the rest of us humans. Little tiny beings that are trying to be something, and when you're trying to be something, you are handed this material. The 7 Hermetic principles. It literally explains life. Why doesn't anybody reach for that before they start speaking so hatefully, or just speaking for God, saying that God doesn't like certain people? It's absolutely ridiculous to make God a petty person. Anybody who speaks for God and is being hateful, they're just making an excuse. They're bringing up God as an excuse to give their arguments validity. God doesn't hate His children. Why would God hate His children? It makes absolutely no sense. And one of those Hermetic principles, it explains the principle of polarity. That everything in the universe, I know I spoke about it before, but it deems repeating, because there's people dying because of the lack of this information. In the principle of polarity, it states that everything in the universe has its polar opposite. Okay? Even though they're opposite, they're still of the same nature. They just differ in degree, like north and south. North and south are literally the same thing. They just differ in degree. There are instruments that can tell you degrees, show you the degrees. See, that's what I'm speaking about, that in between this pole and that pole, there are degrees in between, like a thermometer, like a ruler, like the musical scale, like the color spectrum, like the numbers. You don't discount the numbers in the middle. You don't discount the notes in the middle just because you want to just say, well, there's only 2 notes. There is a spectrum between man and woman, between feminine and masculine, between female and male. There are degrees. They seem opposite. Like one says, oh my God, I would never do what you do. It's so ridiculous. It's just ignorance. Ignorance speaking loudly. And I mean, if you want to let people think that you're dumb, keep your mouth quiet. Or open your mouth and remove no doubt. When people start running their mouths about what God says, what God wishes, that all of these queers just die, that they're all bad. It's not evil what goes into man's mouth, but what comes out. If what is spewing out of a person is evil, well, then you got your answer. There's absolutely no playing around with this stuff. Like, oh, I wonder, let's give him some time and see if he can prove himself or herself. It's no. You are listening to vile coming out of people. So now, looking at that principle of polarity, you have degrees in between, just like the degrees in a thermometer. When does cold start and hot begin or end? It's that kind of thing. So when you have man and when you have woman, and you go, oh, there's only two genders. It is so ignorant. It makes you do a face slap on yourself because you can't hear that. You can't believe that your ears just heard that. Somebody who's so ignorant is actually voicing out their ignorance. Because in between man and woman, you have degrees that spell LGBTQ+. So now that we have that clear, now we can start talking about every single human being having a spirit and having to respond to what this spirit wants, because the spirit has been journeying, has been traveling through time, lifetime after lifetime. A lot of us were the opposite gender in the last lifetime. You don't want to believe in lifetimes and any of that and karma and things like that? Well, that's why you're still confused, because there's only so far that you want to stretch your mind, and I'm sorry that I seem a bit aggressive in my speaking right now, but this is so frustrating that eons have gone by and we're still letting these people literally crucify people who, are not of one specific gender. It's just, there's no such a thing. And I'm gonna tell you how funny it is sometimes. There was this comedian. There's this comedian that Jay Moore, and he was. I think the show was something about his son being gay or something like that. And then he said, I will still love my boy because he's my son. Tell me what a good parent. That's how they would regard their own kid. Okay? No matter what he does or she does, it's still my kid. That's how God sees us. That's one thing. So, he was telling about, the how funny it is, that, the way we behave as little boys and little girls, and, and you get given the truck, and you get the Barbie, and and all of those little things, that for a little boy he has to play pee-wee baseball, right? And then so he's playing pee-wee baseball, and they have this routine where they have rehearsed, hitting the ball, running to first base. They've done it thousands of times, right? So it happens, hits the ball, runs to first base, but it just so happens that when they cut the ball, they threw it over the first baseman. So all of a sudden now you have to improvise, and then everybody's screaming, go, go, go. Well, the first part that was rehearsed, it was just like, yes, well, I'm going to first base. Once they had to improvise, it's like, ah! He was running to second base like a little girl, screaming and stuff, which again, it makes you wonder, well, how much of us is girl and how much of us is boy? How much of us is feminine? How much of us is masculine? The reason why I bring this up is because it is criminal to do that to children. To just tell them, you can't do that. Why? Because you're not allowed. But if it's in the kid's mundus apparatus, meaning that is something that his spirit or her spirit is calling him or her to do, then we have no business criticizing, telling this kid, don't do that. Because if it's the most natural thing for the child, then why are we doing it? Why are we getting in the way? Again, every child knows exactly what they want to do from the moment they're able to communicate it. Some of them start doing before they even start speaking. That is because we all have a purpose. We have talents and skills, and we bring those talents and skills to fulfill our purpose. Everybody's walking around confused, hating themselves, which is the most enraging, and at the same time is so sad that we're literally being confused on purpose just because some people get uncomfortable about it. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm just realizing, just a few years back I started realizing that there was a lot of feminine energy in me. And then the memory started flooding my mind. It's like, yeah, you always wanted to play with the girls. The best conversations you ever heard was listening to your mom talk to her friends, hanging out at the salon, because I grew up in a salon surrounded by a bunch of women. In fact, it reminds me of another Marcelo Hernandez, from SNL, talking about the difference, why men are so depressed. You know why? Because they're not being allowed to express their femininity. It's not allowed. I grew up Mexican, I know. I grew up in macho country, okay? These things are not allowed. And when you show them, you could be mutilated, verbally mutilated, basically pieced apart for doing such things, because coming from macho country, you just don't do those kinds of things. And that's what I'm saying, how criminal it is, that it's like, this is a child's need of expression. And for just somebody to stand on the outside and just say, oh yeah, completely ignore your spiritual yearning. Because, again, the spirit travels through lifetimes, gathers information, talents and skills, and it's all part of the great plan. Because think about it, as you travel, you gather information and skills so you can get to a specific lifetime and put them to work. That's what I'm talking about. We're being robbed of our purpose because some people get uncomfortable. All I'm saying is that we don't need to be listening to these people anymore, because again, they're not in the side of goodness, being that they're so depressive, or so they're trying to get you to shut down whatever magic it is that you have to bring onto the picture, because essentially that it is, that this is just your contribution to the world. You're bringing something nice. A man who is motherly would never be allowed to work in a school because of his weird thoughts that people have about that. Think about it. I mean, what I just said. A man who is motherly working in a school. And what does your brain tell you all of a sudden? Because you've been listening to the rhetoric. But a man who is motherly would be a perfect teacher for a child. So then you see the purpose behind these people being around. They're no fluke. They're not mistakes. They're here to fulfill a purpose. If you consider a drag queen or somebody who is, a drag queen, they become mothers to everybody else around them. Everybody call them mama. If they can't have children physically, they still get them anyway. It's just one of those things that life finds a way. And we're all here to fulfill a purpose, and these people have plenty of skills and talents. Me, myself, as a man who could, I can't even call myself a man anymore, because there's more in there. I'm discovering there's more in there. So to say that is just like to discount it. And this is what I remember that Marlon Brando, one time he was asked, in 2 words, describe yourself. And he said, not in a million years. Think about it. Me just calling myself a man, it just boxes me into this thing. And this is why men are so freaking unhappy these days. Because they're not allowed to. How do I know? I went through it. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm just discovering that I have 2 sides to me. Basically, these energies that work in cohesion, because if you have a man who can be gentle, someone who can be strong and at the same time thoughtful. I mean, this is why some of the best fighters, are dancers. I mean, think about it. It's combining these two forces. So instead of saying, well, since I was born this way, and basically what I have downstairs is telling me, hey, this is how I should behave. I guess this is the way I should behave. And if you could go back and look at my pictures, just miserable. And me looking into a lot of stories of transgender girls, same thing. Very unhappy, lifeless boys. And then as soon as they discover they let themselves be who they are. Which, again, it's one of the bravest things that any human could do, because in a world of fronters, where everybody's fronting something, these people decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to be myself. I don't care what happens. Think about it. So, in essence here, when a person decides to be themselves, they become very happy, because all of a sudden it's like this thing that is just it was there and it's so natural, and it's like, oh wow, this is me. And then they find themselves so happy. So, like the song says, if it makes you happy, then why are you so sad? Then if it makes a person happy to love and love themselves and love whoever they want, then what's the problem? So again, what I'm saying is that these people don't own love, don't own God, don't own spirituality, they don't own your life, they don't own any kind of reasonable brain neuron. So what I'm saying is that they might have eliminated most of us in past lives. Go back in past lives throughout ages. They've been destroying all God's children by putting the brakes on their expression. One huge example is, for instance, when you express your feminine energy, and as a female you would want to, if you know about spirituality, you want to manifest something and you want your energy to rev up and you get really, really in a high vibration, you would go to the forest, take off your clothes, start dancing. Or go and do a cleansing in a nearby lake. But these activities were deemed evil by the people, these people. And again, what I'm saying is that it ain't going to be the same story in this lifetime. Okay, because we know better now. These people don't own God. These people don't own righteousness. These people can't tell us what is a sin and what is not, if we're correct or we're not. Again, evil is spewing out of them. So we don't need to even consider what they're saying. If you have somebody in your life that is wanting you to stop who you are, stop being who you are, you got your answer there. It ain't gonna get any better. You need to walk away from this person, get rid of them, just go away from them, because they are nothing but, trying to trip you, put a stick in your, in your wheel, it's put the brakes on your expression, find the analogy. They're trying to stop you from being you. And that is all God wants from us. How do I know? Because I've asked. Because growing up Catholic, you start having these feelings, you start thinking I'm a sinner. See, that's why, because I went through all that pain, all that confusion, and all thinking that God was mad at me and stuff like that if I behave one way or another. That's not it. First of all, because nobody can speak for God. But you can feel it. You can feel if God is close or if God is far. That's how you can tell. And if by putting on makeup and being who I am and expressing more of my femininity, if that is bad, then I would have paid already. But no, it's because I keep asking, God, please show me the way. Am I doing the right thing? And pretty much the answer that I always feel is that, well, if you're happy, then you're doing the right thing, because happiness is right up there with God, love, high vibration. This is what I'm talking about. That we've been under the spell of thinking that we gotta feel like this, like crap about ourselves for us to feel to be worthy of God's gaze. Are you serious? Oh, look at me, I'm a piece of shit. Oh, yeah, you see me now, God? Oh, which basically is what it's doing. It's just pulling you further away from what God is. A high vibrational energy. Highly vibrational energy. It's the stress, the guilt, the shame keeps pulling us away from it, which makes you wonder, well, why? I mean, well, that's what they want. If they're stopping you from shining, well, that's the best way to do it. Make you feel shameful about who you are, so you stop your shine. If they're calling your shine shameful, think about it. How insidious that is. No, we don't need to be listening to these people. We don't need to be contemplating what they say. We don't need to be stopping our flow because they showed up, because they say that they represent God. They don't represent God, because God don't need any help from the hateful. God is a force. It's powerful. Doesn't need any help from these people. People who are upside down think that their thoughts come from heaven, but it comes from a whole different place. Remember that. So anyway, I was just making this video because it's what happened to me in my life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, to be kept from the truth, because it made others feel uncomfortable. Even the people that I had around at the time when I started to realize these things, and I shared it to them, and they said, good luck with all that. Like, in fact, they also turned on me, and some of them decided they didn't want to be around me. I ended up alone. And I'm like, good riddance. Then I don't have to explain anything to anybody. I could just be me. See what I'm saying? I still believe in God after basically being abandoned by everybody around me. But a lot of them I left because it was just like, again, if it has to make you feel really, really great. And when you have people around you who are constantly you convincing you that is a stupid thing to seek God's light, say bye-bye to them, because they're the ones holding you back. They're the ones who gave you the nightmare pill. They're the ones who told you the stories for you to jump into, these nightmares. They're the ones who keep convincing you that what you feel inside, the visions that you had, the purpose that you know you're here to fulfill, that all of that is crazy. I just want to point out how mean that is. And I say mean not to say something worse, because like I said before in another video, my first impression of humankind when I first arrived here was everybody is so mean. And then I realized maybe that is my purpose. Think about it. There's a lot of people out there saying outlandish, horrible stuff, hateful stuff. It deems changing. So that's what we're here to do. A lot of us are here to do that. So don't despair. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's here, and it is within you. So you don't need any of these people to approve you getting into heaven, because you are heavenly. It's in your nature. Let's just say that the apple don't fall far from the tree. So keep being good. Keep being good, because that's what gets you there. There's this confusion that, well, I don't know, because these guys who are doing everything bad, they keep getting away with it. They're not. See, the funny thing is, a lot of these people think that God's not watching. It's funny because it's like when people do something bad, because they look around, oh, there's no cops, okay, and they start just doing stuff that they shouldn't do. First of all, I just want to point out, you feel like a criminal. You feel like you're doing something wrong. So right there, you have your answer. How God watches you all day, every day, nonstop, it's because a piece of it is in you. So that piece of it gets to watch everything you're doing. Think about it and feel about it. You realize that there's a lot of truth behind all that. So just be good, not for goodness sake, but for your own sake. Because you're heading towards the penthouse. That's the only direction you should be looking towards. Up. And what you're being told by your insides make you feel happy, but you're climbing up. There's no other question. Guilt, shame, forget about it. That was so 20th century. So 19, 18, and far beyond that. See, it's about time. I'm going really long on this one, but it needed to be said. There's a lot of us who have been prisoners of our own families, withholding us or just checking us back or putting the brakes on who we are. That really makes me sad. Which reminds me, I better start singing songs, because if I get sad, that's no good, right? I gotta get up to the penthouse. Think about it and feel about it.